My parents stole my college fund by labeling me mentally disabled and paid for my sister's degree. Now they owe me $150,000 and I've got proof. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. So, get this, I found out just last week that my parents had this college fund for me, but they totally drained it to pay for my sister's college. I'm 24 now, and she's 20. I never went to college because my parents always told me they couldn't help financially and that I'd have to figure it all out myself, so I just didn't go. Right after high school, I started working, first at a gas station, then I moved on to a retail job in the mall. I've been full-time in the working world for about 6 years now. My sister started college 2 years ago. She's attending this fancy private university that costs around $45,000 a year. I just assumed she got scholarships or financial aid or something and didn't really ask because I was trying not to be bitter. Back in high school, I had good grades, was part of the honor society, and wanted to study business or accounting. But my parents kept saying they couldn't help with college expenses. They repeatedly claimed they didn't have money for college. They suggested I try for scholarships but said they couldn't contribute anything, so even community college would have been on me. The way I found out about this college fund was totally random. I was at my parents' house last Sunday for one of those family dinners they insist on every month. My sister was there too. After dinner, my dad asked me to grab some files from his office. He was helping my uncle with taxes or something. While looking through the filing cabinet, I stumbled upon a folder with my name on it. I swear I wasn't snooping, it was just sitting there while I was hunting for the tax stuff. Naturally, I opened it, thinking it might be old school records, but nope, it was bank statements. Tons of them. It was an account in my name that I had no clue existed. The account was opened when I was born, and my grandparents and parents had been putting money in it for years. Deposits were regular until I was about 18. The last statement showed a balance of just over $13,000, with a note next to it saying it was transferred to Emily's education fund 4 years ago. Emily is my sister. I took the folder with me downstairs and asked my parents about it. My mom looked scared, and my dad got angry, claiming I had no business going through their personal files. I pointed out that the account had my name on it, so it felt very much like my business. That's when my mom started crying, and my dad made me sit down. They explained that yes, there was a college fund for me, but since I chose not to go to college, they decided to use it for my sister instead. I reminded them that I didn't choose not to go, they'd always told me they couldn't help. They knew I'd applied to schools and had been accepted. They just kept saying they couldn't afford it, so I just gave up and got a job instead. Dad insisted I should be happy the money stayed in the family to help my sister. My sister was there, looking super uncomfortable. She claimed she didn't know the money was originally for me and thought our parents had saved it specifically for her education. My mom was still crying, saying they did what they thought was best. I just got up and left. I haven't taken their calls or texts since then. My sister texted, saying she's sorry and didn't know. My parents have called about 20 times, and my mom left voicemails wanting to explain. Now, I'm at a loss. That money could have really changed things for me. I could have gone to college and had a different job, maybe even a career by now. Instead, I've been working retail while my sister gets to attend an expensive private university with what was supposed to be my college fund. I'm looking up whether what they did was legal. The account was in my name, but they were probably the custodians since I was a minor. Legally, they might be in the clear, but morally, it feels so wrong. A friend suggested I talk to a lawyer, another said I should just cut ties and move on. I'm torn. Part of me wants to find out if I have any legal claim to that money. Maybe I could still get some of it back and go to college. I'm only 24, after all. It's not too late. My apartment lease is up for renewal next month, and I was thinking of moving to a cheaper place farther from the city. Now I'm wondering if I should move even farther away, maybe to a new city altogether. So, I'm kind of stuck in a dilemma about leaving for a different state to distance myself from my family, but it feels like LLPDS them an easy pass. I reached out to my grandparents, they're my mom's folks. They're actually the ones who kickstarted the college fund when I was born. Turns out, they didn't know the money went to my sister. They just assumed I chose not to use it. They were stunned when I spilled the beans. My granddad was all ready to call my parents to sort this whole mess out, but I haven't heard any update yet. Anyway, after chatting with folks on here, I've decided it's time to lawyer up. Tomorrow, I'm planning to ring a few lawyers to see if I can get a free consultation to figure out my legal options. I just want to know what's possible, even if I don't end up taking any action. Then, I'll figure out my next move regarding my family. So, it's been 3 weeks since I found out about the college fund situation. I found a lawyer who gives free first meetings and met with him last Monday. I even brought along copies of the bank statements I swiped from my parents' house. After checking them out, he suggested I might have a case, depending on how the account was originally set up. If it was a custodial account under the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, the money should have legally been mine when I turned 18 or 21, depending on the state. If my folks moved it without my say after that, it might be financial fraud. The lawyer asked if I was good with tracking down the original account docs from the bank or asking my parents. I decided to hit up the bank first. He also mentioned his fees, which, fun fact, I can't swing right now, so he recommended trying to hash it out with my parents before thinking about legal action. So, I headed to the local credit union the next day, where my parents always bank. Tried to get info on the account but nope, my name's not on it, so no luck there. Sat in my car for what felt like forever, then finally texted my parents. Told them I wanted the original account documents and an explanation about where the money went. My dad shot back a text super quickly, saying they'd explain if I came over. I wasn't having it, told him I needed the paperwork first. Crickets after that. Then, my sister called me later that night. She said our parents were really upset. She had no clue the money was meant for me and said she never would have taken it if she knew. She wanted to have a chat in person, so we met up for coffee at some cafe halfway between our places. She looked exhausted and said she's been feeling guilty since she found out. Apparently, she always thought our parents were paying for her college from their savings and investments, and she just didn't question it. She wanted to know what I was planning to do. After I told her about meeting with a lawyer, she got kinda upset and asked if I was seriously going to sue our parents. I said I wasn't sure yet, but I just wanted the truth and what was mine. She was worried I'd make her drop out of college, but I told her that's not my goal. She's already halfway through her degree. But our parents need to make this right. She didn't get how they could come up with that kind of cash now, since most of it was spent on her first 2 years of tuition and housing. Turns out her education costs about $45,000 a year, so that's $90,000 already gone from my fund, with another $90,000 probably needed for her to finish. She didn't have any scholarships or financial aid because our parents said they had it covered, so she never even applied for any. After our coffee chat, I decided to email my parents. I wrote that I wanted the full lowdown on how the account was set up, when and how they moved the money, and what their plan was to fix things. My mom emailed back a few hours later, saying the account was set up as a savings account for my benefit with her and my dad as account holders. When I apparently didn't want to go to college, they assumed I didn't need the money and transferred it to help my sister. She apologized for not talking to me first. I replied, pointing out that I never decided against college, they just told me they couldn't help financially. I asked why they lied about having money for my education. She dodged that one in her next email, saying they thought they were doing what was best for the family, thinking I could make my own way since I'm independent, while my sister needed more support. I've been checking out college options for myself. There's a state university about 30 minutes away that offers evening and weekend classes, so I could keep my job and study part-time. But even with in-state tuition, it's going to take me forever to finish a degree that way. So, here's the deal. I had to start taking out loans because the money that was supposed to cover my entire education and living expenses was redirected, even though it's currently covering everything for my sister. My grandparents reached out last week. They had a chat with my parents and were pretty upset. They've been putting money into my college fund for years, thinking it was specifically for me. If Grandpa had known my parents would reroute it, he'd have organized it differently. He even offered to pay for a lawyer. I accepted his help but also started working extra shifts to save up for legal fees, just in case. Then I got an email from my dad. He wants to move past this misunderstanding and get back to being a family. He even invited me to dinner on Sunday. I haven't replied because I don't see how this is a misunderstanding. They lied for years and used money meant for me. I'm not ready to just let that slide. To make ends meet faster, I picked up a second job delivering food on weekends. Now I'm clocking about 60 hours a week between both jobs. It's exhausting, but it keeps my mind off things. My sister messaged me recently, saying our parents have been arguing a lot since this all came out. Mom's been crying a lot, and Dad's angry at everyone. She wants me to talk to them, but I'm still figuring things out. My lawyer reached out after I got some info from the bank. He said without the original account documents, it's hard to know where I stand legally. He suggested sending a formal letter to my parents asking for all the account documents and details on how the money was used. If they refuse, it could help my case if I decide to take legal action. I drafted the letter last night and plan to send it tomorrow. I haven't decided about the family dinner yet. Part of me wants to avoid them, but another part wants to confront them. My lease renewal is up in 5 days, and I've decided to stay put. Moving is pricey, and I need to save every cent I can. Plus, I don't want to run away from this mess. I want to resolve it somehow, even if that means going to court. I keep thinking about all the times I struggled with money over the last 6 years. Like, my car broke down and I couldn't fix it for 3 months, so I took long bus rides to work. Or when I got sick and couldn't afford a doctor. Meanwhile, my parents had a stash of money meant for me. If they'd been straight with me from the start and said something like, "We have some cash saved, but it's not enough for a full-on university, so think about community college first," I would have understood and made different choices. But they lied and planned to give it all to my sister. My sister wants to study art history and work in a museum. It's not exactly a high-paying field. I wanted to study accounting and could have had a stable career by now. But she's living the dream on my dime while I'm working retail and making food deliveries on the side. I haven't slept well in weeks. My mind races at night, replaying arguments with my parents that never really happen. Update: it's been another month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I skipped the family dinner and sent the formal letter my lawyer helped me write. I mailed it certified so I'd know when they got it. The letter asked for all the account documents, a full rundown of how the money was spent, and a plan to pay it back. I gave them 2 weeks to reply. If they don't, I'll consider other options, like suing them. 3 days after they got the letter, my dad showed up at my place. I wasn't expecting him. He barged in while I was getting ready for my delivery shift, waving my letter in his hand, looking all red-faced and angry. He started yelling about how ungrateful I was and couldn't believe I was thinking about suing my own parents. He feels they've taken care of me my whole life, so I have no right to demand anything now. I tried to keep cool and told him if he couldn't talk reasonably, he'd have to leave. That just made him angrier. He thinks I'm the one tearing. So, here's the situation. My family is in a bit of a mess over money issues. My sister was super upset, thinking I was trying to mess up her school plans. Meanwhile, my mom couldn't stop crying ever since they got my letter. When I asked my dad about the account papers, he said they were gone, and they hadn't kept tabs on all the spending. I wasn't asking for every tiny detail, just a basic rundown. He claimed the money went to my sister's tuition and living expenses, and I didn't need to know more. But when I brought up a repayment plan, he totally lost it. According to him, there was nothing to pay back because the money was never really mine. They controlled the account and did whatever they wanted with it. They had planned to help me with college, but since I chose a different route, they decided to fund my sister instead. I pointed out that I never turned down college. They said they couldn't help me financially. He thought I wasn't serious about my education, which makes no sense since my grades were good, and I got into several schools. He didn't have an answer for that. In the end, I just told him to leave because I had to get to work. As he left, he warned me to drop the issue if I wanted to stay part of the family. I was super shaky afterward and called in sick to my delivery job. I couldn't handle dealing with customers after that drama. The next day, my mom kept calling, leaving voicemails saying they wanted to sort things out as a family and that they loved me. I texted back saying if family mattered more than money, they wouldn't have lied all these years and used my college fund for my sister. My sister texted too, saying our dad came back from my place and punched a wall, and our mom was so upset she took a day off work. She begged me to drop the legal stuff and just talk. She felt trapped and didn't know what to do, but offered to pay me back after she graduated, admitting it would take years. I spoke with my lawyer again because my parents weren't giving any documents or considering repayment. He mentioned we could go to court to get the documents, but it would be pricey with no guarantee of winning. He suggested trying to resolve it directly one more time. So, I emailed my parents, laying out what I needed, all account documents, a spending breakdown, and a formal repayment plan. I said I preferred not to go to court but would if necessary, giving them a week to respond. 5 days later, my dad emailed, saying they were willing to repay $20,000 over 5 years in monthly payments of about $333, which was all they could afford. They hoped it'd be enough to mend things, but there was no mention of the documents I asked for. I showed the email to my lawyer, who saw it as a start but said without a formal agreement, there's no guarantee they'd stick to the payments. Plus, $20,000 was much less than I was entitled to since the account had over $13,000 originally. The lawyer advised not accepting the offer without more info and everything in writing. I emailed my dad back, appreciating their willingness to talk but still needing the documents and a spending breakdown. I also pointed out $20,000 wasn't enough considering the account's original amount, suggesting a larger repayment over a shorter period. My mom called crying, saying they didn't have the documents anymore and couldn't repay more than $20,000 without serious financial trouble. They were already planning a second mortgage on their house to come up with that amount. She asked if I really wanted to put them in debt just to get back at them. I said it wasn't about revenge but about getting what was rightfully mine. I reminded her they let me struggle financially while sitting on money meant for me, asking how she'd feel in my shoes. She had no answer, just insisting they thought they were doing the right thing at the time. Last week, my grandparents called for an update, so I told them about my dad's visit, the $20,000 offer, and my lawyer's advice. My grandfather got really quiet, then said he needed to check something and would get back to me. He called the next day and asked to meet for lunch, so I agreed. So, we all met up at this restaurant pretty close to where my grandpa lives. My grandma was with us too, and honestly, they seemed a bit on edge. Turns out, my grandpa had been digging through some old files and stumbled upon something he thought I needed to check out. He handed me this folder, and inside was a copy of their will from like 15 years ago, plus some other paperwork. He showed me a part of the will that talked about a trust fund set up for my education. The plan was for my parents to manage it until I turned 18, and then it would be mine for school stuff. I asked if this was the same account I'd found out about, and he thought it probably was, but wasn't entirely sure. He'd been putting money into a college fund for me since I was a baby, and this trust was part of that pot. My parents had chipped in a bit too, and there was some life insurance money from when my other grandparents passed away. I questioned why they had changed the will since then, but he seemed confused and swore they hadn't. I pointed out that if this was still in their current will and they were alive, how did my parents use the money? He didn't have an answer. That trust wasn't supposed to be touched by my parents at all, it should have gone to me at 18. The next day, I took the papers to my lawyer. After looking them over, he said this changed things big time. If the trust was set up by my grandparents to be handed over to me at 18, then my parents had no right to dip into it. We had to figure out what really happened with that trust and how my parents got their hands on it. He wrote up a formal letter asking for all the trust documents and any related accounts. If my parents played hardball, we'd go to court and subpoena the bank records. Thanks to the info from my grandparents, our case was looking pretty solid. I sent the letter via certified mail, and a few days later my dad called, absolutely livid. He couldn't believe I'd gotten lawyers involved and was thinking about suing my own folks. He said I was breaking my mom's heart and that I'd regret it forever. I stayed cool, told him I just wanted the truth and what was mine. If they had nothing to hide, they shouldn't mind handing over the documents I asked for. He hung up on me. Later, my sister texted me. Our parents had filled her in, and she wanted to meet up again to talk. We met at our usual cafe. She looked more exhausted than before. She said our parents had been arguing nonstop since they got my lawyer's letter. Mom admitted they'd used some of the money for other stuff, like fixing up the house and that Europe trip they took 3 years ago. My sister was upset and said she felt sick about it. She was halfway through her degree and couldn't finish without help from our parents. She asked if I was really going to sue them. I told her that wasn't what I wanted, but I needed the truth and some justice. She got it. Yesterday, I got an email from my mom. They upped their repayment offer to $50,000 over 3 years and said they'd try to get the account records from the bank. She begged me to hold off on any legal action until they could sort it out. I passed the email to my lawyer. He thought the new offer was a good sign they were starting to take this seriously, but still, it was way less than I was probably entitled to, especially if they used the money for things other than our education. He advised me to wait and see what documents they managed to get before deciding. So that's where things are now. I'm waiting for my parents to hand over the paperwork they promised. My lawyer is ready to file a lawsuit if they don't. My sister's stuck in the middle, worried about her schooling and our family falling apart. My grandparents are pretty upset that their plans for my education weren't honored. Meanwhile, I'm juggling 2 jobs, trying to save up to maybe start classes part-time next semester while dealing with all this drama. Sleep hasn't been great either, and working extra hours isn't helping. But at least I feel like I'm moving closer to some kind of closure. I'm not sure if things with my parents will ever be the same after this. But I can't just brush it off. They took something that was meant for me and lied about it for years. They watched me struggle while spending my money on themselves. They gave my sister opportunities they didn't give me. I need the truth, some justice, and the chance for the education that should have been mine all along. Update time: 2 more weeks have gone by, and finally, my parents sent over some of the documents I've been waiting for. So, I asked for copies of the original account setup papers from different years, plus the transfer docs from 4 years ago. After my lawyer checked it all out, we found something way worse than I expected. It turns out the account wasn't just some college fund my parents set up, it was actually a trust for my grandparents specifically for my education. They started it with $25,000 when I was born, and the rules said it was only for school stuff. My parents were in charge until I turned 18, and then I was supposed to get control. The statements showed regular deposits from my grandparents, and my parents chipped in occasionally, but not as consistently. When my paternal grandparents passed away when I was 12, some of their life insurance money went into the trust too. By the time I finished high school, the account had over $13,000. Here's where things went off the rails. When I turned 18, my parents convinced the bank to keep trusteeship with them instead of giving it to me as the original papers said. They claimed I couldn't handle the money because of a fake cognitive disability, even forging a doctor's note. I have no idea who this doctor is or how they pulled that off because I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. With control of the account, they kept it in my name for 2 more years and then emptied it when my sister was heading to college. Most of the cash went to her education, but about $30,000 ended up elsewhere. Judging by the dates, that money lined up with their home Reno and a European trip my sister mentioned. My lawyer said this was clear fraud. They made up medical docs, lied about my capabilities, and went against my grandparents' trust terms. We had a solid case for a lawsuit, and we might even claim more for damages. I was floored seeing all this. I knew they'd lied about the money, but never thought they'd go so far as to fake documents about my mental health. The betrayal was so deep, I couldn't process it right away. I just sat there in my lawyer's office, staring at the papers. My lawyer suggested giving my parents one last chance to fix it before we filed a lawsuit. He wrote up a demand letter outlining what we found and what we knew they'd done. He demanded they pay back the original $13,000, plus $30,000 for non-school expenses, with interest over 4 years, totaling over $150,000. We gave them 10 days to agree to a plan or face a lawsuit. I sent the letter via certified mail. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a lawyer for my parents, asking to talk about a settlement. My lawyer told me not to speak to them directly and handled the communication. After their talks, my lawyer said my parents were offering $75,000 in monthly payments over 5 years. But he thought it wasn't enough considering what we'd uncovered and suggested we push for the full $150,000, maybe with a longer payment plan if needed. While the lawyers were negotiating, my sister called me, saying she was thinking of dropping out and getting a job to help pay me back. I told her not to quit school, it wasn't her fault, and we'd figure something out that wouldn't ruin her education. She was thankful and super mad at our parents. She even moved out, crashing at a friend's place because she couldn't stand being around them after all this. I'm just wiped from everything, working 2 jobs and dealing with this whole mess. I'll keep you posted on any updates about the settlement, but right now, I'm about to crash from exhaustion. Thanks for sticking with me through this. I'll come back with more when I can.